The Moon Rabbit. A tale from East Asian folklore. On a clear night, when the moon is full and bright in the sky, hanging like a lantern among the stars, people across the world pause in their busy lives to look up and marvel at its beauty. The moon has captivated humanity since the very beginning of our existence. This mysterious silver orb that waxes and wanes, that pulls the tides and marks the passage of time, that has witnessed every moment of human history from its silent watch in the heavens. Different cultures see different things when they gaze at the moon's face. In Western traditions, people speak of the man in the moon, seeing in the dark markings what looks like a human face, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth turned up in an eternal smile. But across East Asia, from China to Japan, from Korea to Vietnam, across Thailand and beyond, people see something quite different when they look at the full moon. They see a rabbit. Not just any rabbit, but a special rabbit with a story that has been told for more than 2,000 years. A story that has shaped festivals and traditions, inspired poets and artists, and taught countless generations about the virtues of selflessness, compassion, and sacrifice. This is the legend of the moon rabbit, known by many names. Yutu or Jade rabbit in China, Tsukimi no Usagi in Japan, Daltokki in Korea, and by other names in other places, but always the same essential creature. A rabbit who lives on the moon, pounding away with mortar and pestle, creating either the elixir of immortality or delicious rice cakes, depending on which version of the story you hear. The origins of this legend stretch back into the mists of antiquity. The earliest written references appear in Chinese texts from the Warring States period, around 475 to 221 BCE, more than 2 millennia ago. Ancient Chinese poets wrote of a hare on the moon, and it was indeed a hare in those early texts, for rabbits were not native to China at that time. An animal companion to immortal beings, ceaselessly pounding herbs to create medicines and elixirs for the gods. Over the centuries, the legend spread and evolved, carried by Buddhist missionaries and traders along the Silk Road, adapted by different cultures to fit their own traditions and beliefs, taking on new details while maintaining its essential core. The story became intertwined with harvest festivals. The Mid-Autumn Festival in China, Tsukimi in Japan, Chuseok in Korea, Tet Trung Thursday in Vietnam, celebrations that honor the full moon and give thanks for the harvest, festivals where families gather to share special foods and tell the old stories under the moonlight. What is it about this legend that has given it such enduring power? Why has the image of a rabbit on the moon resonated so deeply across so many cultures for so many centuries? Perhaps it is because the story touches on something fundamental about the human experience. The desire to be remembered, the nobility of self-sacrifice, the hope that our actions have meaning that extends beyond our brief lives. Or perhaps it is simply that when we look at the moon on a clear night, with the right frame of mind and the right kind of imagination, we really can see it. The silhouette of a rabbit, standing upright, holding a pestle, pounding away in an eternal rhythm, faithful to its task through all the long centuries, a companion to the moon goddess or the gods, a symbol of virtue rewarded, a reminder that small acts of compassion can have cosmic significance. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, we invite you on a journey across East Asia to explore the many facets of this beautiful legend. We will tell you the core story, the tale of how the rabbit came to live on the moon, and then we will explore its variations across different cultures, the meanings it carries, and the traditions it has inspired. We will look at how this ancient myth continues to influence modern life, how it connects earth and sky, mortal and immortal, the everyday world and the realm of legend. So settle yourself comfortably, let the cares of the day drift away, and prepare to hear a story that has brought wonder and wisdom to countless millions across more than 2,000 years. The story of the moon rabbit, the most selfless of all creatures, whose act of compassion earned it a place among the stars. Long, long ago, so long ago that the very shape of the world was different, when mountains were young and rivers still carving their paths to the sea, there lived 4 animals who were friends despite being very different from one another. These were monkey, otter, jackal, and rabbit, and they lived in a forest at the edge of a great kingdom, in a time when animals could speak and think and feel just as humans did, when the boundary between the mortal world and the divine realm was thinner than it is today. Monkey was clever and agile, able to climb the tallest trees with ease, leaping from branch to branch as if he had wings. His fur was soft and brown, his eyes bright with intelligence, and his hands were nimble. He could grasp the smallest fruit or manipulate the most delicate object with a dexterity that made others marvel. He was sometimes mischievous, playing tricks on the other animals, but he was also generous and loyal to his friends. Otter was sleek and swift in the water, moving through rivers and streams like a flash of silver, able to dive deep and hold his breath for what seemed like impossible lengths of time. His coat was dark and waterproof, his whiskers sensitive to the slightest movement in the current, his teeth sharp for catching fish. He was pragmatic and hard-working, always thinking ahead, always planning for the next meal or the next season. Jackal was cunning and resourceful, able to find food where others saw only barren ground, skilled at scavenging and hunting in equal measure. His coat was reddish gold, his ears large and alert to every sound, his eyes sharp and always watching for opportunity. He was not always entirely honest. He would steal if necessary, and he saw nothing wrong with taking advantage of others' carelessness. But he was also fiercely independent and surprisingly philosophical about the nature of existence. And then there was Rabbit. She was small and gentle, with soft white fur and large dark eyes that looked at the world with a mixture of innocence and deep wisdom. Her ears were long and sensitive, able to hear the approach of danger from far away. She was not as clever as Monkey, not as skilled as Otter, not as cunning as Jackal. She knew only how to do simple things, how to find the best grass to eat, how to dig burrows for shelter, how to sit very still when predators were near. But what she lacked in abilities, she made up for in kindness and gentleness of spirit. These four animals, despite their differences, had become friends through the simple proximity of living in the same forest and through shared experiences of survival. They would often gather together in a clearing near a great old tree, sharing stories and observations about the world, keeping each other company in a life that could otherwise be lonely and dangerous. Now, it happened that these four animals had been learning about the teachings of compassion and virtue. Perhaps they had overheard a wandering monk speaking to travelers, or perhaps they had encountered a wise hermit who lived in the forest, or perhaps the knowledge had simply come to them through that mysterious way that important truths sometimes arrive in the mind. However it happened, they had learned about the concept of charity, the idea that one should give to others without expectation of reward, that compassion for those who suffer is one of the highest virtues, that selfless acts create merit that benefits not just the recipient but the entire cosmos. And they had learned that there was a special day, the day of the full moon, called Upasatha in the Buddhist tradition, that was set aside for the practice of charity and virtue. On this day, it was said, the heavens themselves paid attention to the actions of those on earth, and acts of great virtue performed on this day earned special merit, bringing the practitioner closer to enlightenment, creating positive karma that would follow them through all their future lives. The four friends discussed this teaching with great interest. They were, after all, just animals, not monks or holy men, but they saw no reason why they could not also practice virtue and charity. Why should such things be limited to humans? Did not all beings suffer? Did not all beings desire happiness? Did not all beings benefit from kindness? Let us make a pact, said Monkey, hanging upside down from a tree branch, his tail wrapped securely around the limb. When the next full moon comes, let us each practice the highest charity we can. If someone comes to us in need, let us give whatever we can to help them, holding nothing back, acting with pure compassion. Agreed, said Otter, sleek and dripping from his latest swim. I can catch fish, more fish than I need for myself. If someone is hungry, I will give them fish without hesitation. I too agree, said Jackal, licking his paws thoughtfully. I am skilled at finding food in unexpected places. Whatever I find, I will share. Rabbit said nothing at first, and the others looked at her with concern. What troubles you, sister? asked Monkey. "Do you not wish to join us in this practice?" "I do wish to join you," Rabbit said softly, "more than anything. But I am worried. You see, I have no special skills. Monkey, you can climb and gather fruit. Otter, you can swim and catch fish. Jackal, you are clever at finding food. But I can only gather grass, and grass is not fit for others to eat. I want to practice charity, but I do not know what I have to give." The other animals reassured her. "Do not worry," said Monkey gently. "Simply do what you can. The intention matters as much as the act. If you offer grass with a pure heart, surely that is worth something." But Rabbit was not entirely comforted. She knew that grass would not help a hungry traveler, and the thought troubled her deeply. Still, she agreed to the pact, and all 4 friends promised that when the full moon came, they would practice the highest charity they were capable of. The days passed, and the moon grew from a thin crescent to a half circle to a gibbous swelling, until finally the night of the full moon arrived. The moonlight was so bright that the forest seemed almost as light as day, though everything was touched with silver, transformed into something magical and otherworldly. The 4 friends gathered in their usual clearing, feeling a sense of anticipation, wondering if the opportunity for charity would actually present itself or if they would simply spend the night beneath the beautiful moon, their intentions noted by heaven even if no action was required. And then, just as the moon reached its highest point in the sky, they heard footsteps approaching through the forest. All 4 animals became alert, their ears pricked, their bodies tense, for a stranger approaching could be a threat as easily as an opportunity. But as the figure came into view, they saw it was an old man, walking slowly, leaning heavily on a staff, his clothes tattered and dirty, his face lined with age and hardship. The old man stopped when he saw the animals, and he looked at them with eyes that were surprisingly clear despite his obvious frailty. "Please," he said, his voice weak with exhaustion and hunger, "I have been traveling for days without food. I am an old beggar with no family and no home. Can any of you help me? Even a small morsel would be a blessing. I fear I will not survive much longer without sustenance." The 4 friends looked at each other, and without need for discussion, they knew what they had to do. This was their opportunity. This hungry old man was exactly the test they had been preparing for. "Wait here, grandfather," said Monkey kindly. "Rest yourself beneath this tree. We will bring you food." And with that, each animal hurried off in a different direction, eager to fulfill their promise, to practice the charity they had committed to. Monkey, with his amazing climbing ability, scampered up the nearest fruit tree, moving from branch to branch with practiced ease. He selected the ripest fruits, mangoes heavy with sweetness, bananas perfectly yellow, figs that had just reached their peak, gathering them carefully and placing them in a broad leaf that he fashioned into a carrying pouch. Within minutes, he had collected a generous pile of fruit, more than enough to satisfy a hungry old man. Pleased with himself, he hurried back to the clearing and presented his offering to the beggar. "Here, grandfather," Monkey said, laying the fruits at the old man's feet. "Fresh fruit from the best trees in the forest. They are ripe and sweet. Please eat and restore your strength." The old man smiled gently and accepted the gift with gratitude, but he did not eat yet, saying he wished to wait and see what the others might bring. Otter had dove into the nearby stream, his whiskers twitching as he sensed the movements of fish in the current. He was an expert fisherman, or rather, an expert fisher otter, and it took him almost no time to catch 3 large, beautiful fish, their scales gleaming silver in the moonlight. He carried them carefully in his mouth back to the clearing and laid them beside the fruits Monkey had brought. "Here, grandfather," Otter said, water still dripping from his sleek coat. "Fresh fish from the stream, caught just moments ago. They are fat and healthy. You can cook them or eat them raw, they will give you strength either way." Again the old man accepted with thanks but did not yet eat, still waiting to see what the other 2 animals would bring. Jackal, meanwhile, had been using his cunning and resourcefulness to good effect. He had snuck to the edge of a nearby village, something the other animals would have been too frightened to do, and had found outside a home a pot of milk curd that had been left to cool. It was stealing, yes, but Jackal reasoned that charity to a starving old man justified the small theft. He also caught a large lizard, using his quick reflexes and sharp teeth. Carrying both carefully, he returned to the clearing. "Here, grandfather," Jackal said, not mentioning how he had acquired these offerings. "Milk curd and meat. Not the most elegant meal, perhaps, but nutritious and filling. You will not go hungry tonight." The old man nodded his appreciation, now having before him quite a feast: fruits, fish, milk curd, and lizard meat. But he still did not eat, for there was one more animal who had gone off to find food, one more friend who had made the promise of charity. Rabbit had hopped away into the forest, her heart heavy with worry. She looked for anything that might be suitable to offer the hungry old man. She found grass, so much grass, as much grass as anyone could want, but grass would not help a human being. She found leaves and bark and twigs, but none of these were food for humans either. She searched and searched, growing more distressed with each passing moment, as the moon moved across the sky and time slipped away. Finally, exhausted and empty-handed, she returned to the clearing where her friends and the old beggar waited. She saw the generous offerings that Monkey and Otter and Jackal had brought, and she saw how the old man smiled at each of them, and her heart sank with shame. "Grandfather," she said quietly, her ears drooping, "I am sorry. I have nothing to offer you. I searched and searched, but I have no skill at climbing trees or catching fish or finding food that humans can eat. I can only gather grass, and grass is not fit for you to eat. I have failed in my promise of charity." The old man looked at her gently, and something in his eyes seemed to shine brighter, though his voice remained weak and tired. "Do not be ashamed, little one," he said. "The intention in your heart matters more than the gift in your hands." But Rabbit was not comforted. She had made a promise, to herself, to her friends, to the universe, that she would practice charity on this day of the full moon, and she had failed. The others had succeeded, each bringing something valuable while she had nothing. And then quite suddenly an idea came to her. It was a terrible idea in one sense, but in another sense it was the only idea that made sense, the only way she could fulfill her promise, the only gift she had to give. "Grandfather," she said, her voice steady now, calm with certainty, "I do have something to offer you after all. I cannot gather fruits or catch fish or find milk curd. But I can give you something that humans do eat, something that will fill your belly and give you strength. I can give you my own body. Rabbit meat is good to eat. Build a fire, and I will throw myself into it, and you will have your meal." The other three animals gasped in horror. "No," cried Monkey. "You cannot do this." "There is plenty of food already," said Otter desperately. "The grandfather has fruits and fish and other things. You do not need to sacrifice yourself." "This is madness," said Jackal, who despite his cunning nature was deeply moved by Rabbit's declaration. "We made a promise to practice charity, yes, but not at the cost of our own lives." But Rabbit's mind was made up. She had found her way to fulfill the promise, and now that she knew what to do, she felt a strange sense of peace. "Please, grandfather," she said to the old man, "build a fire. This is the gift I have to give." The old man, still sitting beneath the tree, looking frail and tired, nodded slowly. "If this is truly what you wish," he said, and with surprising ease for one who had seemed so weak, he gathered some dry wood and kindling and built a small fire in the center of the clearing. The flames leaped up, bright and hot, casting dancing shadows in the moonlit forest. Rabbit hopped closer to the fire, feeling its heat on her fur. She paused for just a moment, not from fear or doubt, but from compassion for the small creatures who lived in her coat, the tiny insects and fleas that made their homes there. She shook herself vigorously, sending them flying away to safety. She would sacrifice herself, yes, but she would not take other innocent lives with her. "Goodbye, my friends," she said to Monkey and Otter and Jackal. "Do not grieve for me. I do this with a glad heart. Remember me kindly." And before any of them could stop her, before she herself could have second thoughts, Rabbit leaped into the fire. Monkey shrieked and covered his eyes. Otter dove toward the flames as if he could somehow pull her out. Jackal howled in anguish. This was not how their day of charity was supposed to end. They had wanted to do good, to help someone in need, not to lose their friend. But then something extraordinary happened. Something impossible. Something that showed this was no ordinary night, and this was no ordinary old beggar. The fire, which had been burning hot and bright, suddenly became cool. Not warm, not merely comfortable, but actually cold as ice, as cold as mountain snow. The flames continued to dance and flicker, looking exactly like fire, but possessing none of fire's heat or destructive power. Rabbit landed in the midst of these cold flames and stood there, completely unharmed, not a single hair on her coat singed, not feeling even the slightest discomfort. She looked around in confusion, then looked up at the old beggar. And as she looked, she saw the beggar begin to transform. The tattered clothes became fine robes, glowing with inner light. The bent back straightened. The lines of age and hardship faded. The staff disappeared, no longer needed. The man grew taller, more radiant, more beautiful than anything Rabbit had ever seen. His eyes, those eyes that had seemed clear even when the rest of him appeared frail, now shone like stars, full of ancient wisdom and infinite compassion. This was no beggar. This was Sakra, the Lord of the gods, ruler of the highest heaven, he who watched over the world and tested the virtue of beings both mortal and divine. Or in some versions of the story, this was the Jade Emperor himself, sovereign of heaven and earth. Or the old man of the moon, who governed the phases of the lunar cycle. The specific name varied depending on who told the tale and which culture's traditions shaped the story, but the essential truth remained the same. This was a divine being, come down to earth in disguise to test the virtue of 4 simple forest animals. The cold fire vanished, and Rabbit found herself standing unharmed on the grass of the clearing, looking up at the revealed divinity with wonder and something like awe. Her friends, who had been crying out in anguish, now fell silent, understanding that they were in the presence of something far greater than themselves. The God, for we will call him simply that, recognizing that different traditions give him different names, smiled down at Rabbit with infinite gentleness. When he spoke, his voice was like music, like the sound of wind through temple bells, like harmony itself made audible. "Little Rabbit," he said, "I came to Earth tonight to test the virtue of 4 animals who claimed they would practice charity on this day of the full moon. And truly you have all shown kindness. Monkey brought the sweet fruits of his labor. Otter brought fish from the stream, providing sustenance. Jackal brought what he could find, overcoming his nature to give to another. All of these were good gifts, freely given, demonstrations of genuine charity." He paused, and his gaze rested fully on Rabbit, and in that gaze was such warmth, such approval, such love that she felt her heart might burst from the joy of it. "But you, little Rabbit," the god continued, "you have shown something beyond charity. You have shown perfect selflessness. You had nothing material to give, and yet you found a way to give the most precious thing any being possesses, your own life. You were willing to sacrifice everything, to give your very self, so that another might not go hungry. And you did this not because you expected reward, not because you sought praise, not even because you were certain your sacrifice would be accepted. You did it simply because it was the right thing to do, the only way you could fulfill your promise of charity." Tears were streaming down Rabbit's face now, though she didn't fully understand why she was crying. "I only wanted to help," she whispered. "I only wanted to give something like my friends did. I had nothing else to offer. And that is exactly why your gift is the greatest of all," the god said. "Those who have much can afford to be generous. But you who had little gave everything. This is the highest form of compassion, the truest charity. And such virtue must not go unrewarded." He raised his hand and power flowed from him. Not threatening or frightening but creative, transformative, the power that shapes reality itself. The air around them began to shimmer with golden light, and the moon above seemed to grow brighter, as if leaning closer to witness what was about to happen. "For your virtue, little rabbit," the god declared, "I will honor you by placing your image on the moon itself, where all beings across the world will see you for all time, from this age unto the end of ages. You will live on the moon in comfort and peace, freed from the dangers and hardships of mortal existence. And whenever people look up at the full moon, they will see your shape in the shadows there, and they will remember your story, and they will be inspired to practice compassion and selflessness in their own lives." "But what about my friends?" Rabbit asked, for even in this moment of divine recognition, her thoughts went to others. "What about Monkey and Otter and Jackal? They also practiced charity. They also gave freely." The god smiled. "Your friends have earned merit by their actions tonight, and that merit will follow them through all their future lives. But they do not need the honor that you have earned. Let them continue their lives in the forest, remembering this night, knowing that they witnessed something sacred. And let them tell others what they saw so that your story spreads throughout the world." He turned to Monkey, Otter, and Jackal, who had been watching this exchange in silent wonder. "Go," he said to them gently, "and live well, and remember what you have learned tonight, that true charity comes from the heart, that the size of the gift matters less than the spirit in which it is given, and that the smallest among you may possess the greatest virtue." The three animals bowed low, understanding that they had been blessed simply by being witnesses to this moment, by having known and loved a being of such pure compassion. They would indeed remember this night for the rest of their lives, and they would tell the story to anyone who would listen, ensuring that Rabbit's act of selflessness would not be forgotten. And then the god turned back to Rabbit, and he bent down and gently picked her up, cradling her in his arms as a father might hold a precious child. "Come," he said. "Come to the moon and take your place among the immortals." Rabbit looked at her three friends one last time. "Goodbye," she said softly. "Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for teaching me about charity and virtue. I will never forget you." "And we will never forget you," Monkey managed to say through his tears. "Whenever we look up at the moon, we will see you there and remember the kindest soul we ever knew." And with that, the god rose into the air, carrying Rabbit with him, ascending toward the moon that hung bright and full in the sky. Higher and higher they rose, past the treetops, past the clouds, past the realm where birds fly, into the space between earth and heaven where the air grows thin and the stars burn cold and bright. Rabbit looked down and saw the world shrinking beneath her. The forest where she had lived, the clearing where she had nearly died, her three friends who now looked like tiny specks in the moonlight. She saw mountains and rivers, villages and cities, the vast tapestry of the mortal world that she was leaving behind. And then they reached the moon, and Rabbit discovered that it was not the cold, barren place it appeared from Earth, but a realm of extraordinary beauty, meadows of silver grass that swayed in a gentle breeze that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, groves of trees that bore fruit of pure light, streams of liquid starlight flowing through luminous stones. And in the center of this realm stood a magnificent palace, its walls carved from moonstone, its roofs tiled with nacre that reflected every color of the rainbow. "Welcome to your new home," the god said, setting Rabbit down gently on the soft ground. "Here you will live in peace and comfort. And here you will have a task if you are willing to accept it, a task that will benefit all the beings of heaven and earth." "What task?" Rabbit asked, looking around at the wonders surrounding her. The god gestured, and there appeared a large mortar made of some material Rabbit had never seen before. Perhaps jade, perhaps crystal, perhaps something that existed only in the realm of the gods. Next to it was a heavy pestle of similar construction. "You will pound herbs and create elixirs," the god explained. "In one version of your story, you will create the elixir of immortality, the medicine that keeps the gods and goddesses from aging, the potion that grants eternal life. In another version, you will pound the ingredients for sacred rice cakes, food for the gods, sustenance that connects the divine realm with the mortal world below. The task will take forever, for it can never be completed, There is always more medicine to make, always more rice cakes to prepare. But it is meaningful work, honest work, and it will give you purpose through all the endless ages you will live. I will do it gladly, Rabbit said, for she had always been a humble creature, content with simple tasks, finding joy in work well done rather than in status or glory. One more thing, the god said, and he gestured again, and smoke appeared, the very smoke that had risen when Rabbit leaped into the fire that was not really a fire, smoke that should have dissipated into the air but which the god had preserved because even that smoke had meaning. He painted this smoke around Rabbit's image on the surface of the moon, preserving the moment of her sacrifice, creating the shadow that people on earth would see when they looked up at the full moon. There, he said with satisfaction. Now your image is complete. From this night forward, anyone who looks at the moon will see a rabbit, standing upright, holding a pestle, pounding away at a mortar. And if they know the story, they will remember your virtue. And if they do not know the story, perhaps they will be curious and seek it out, and in learning of your sacrifice, they themselves may be inspired to greater compassion. And so Rabbit took her place on the moon, began her eternal task of pounding herbs or rice or the ingredients of immortality, the details varying depending on which tradition tells the tale, and became part of the cosmic order, her small act of selflessness having earned her a place among the immortals, her image forever preserved in the night sky for all the world to see. Down on earth, monkey and otter and jackal looked up at the moon and saw their friend's silhouette appear in the shadows there, and they marveled at what had happened, and they went out into the world to tell the story, and the story spread, carried on the lips of travelers and monks and poets, crossing borders and centuries, becoming one of the most beloved legends of all Asia. And every year, on the night of the full moon, on the Mid-Autumn Festival or Tsukimi or Chuseok, or whatever name each culture gives to their moon-viewing celebration, people look up at the moon and see the rabbit there, and they remember the lesson, that true charity asks everything and expects nothing, that the smallest beings can possess the greatest virtue, that selfless acts echo through eternity, and that compassion is the highest calling of all conscious beings, whether animal or human, mortal or divine. The story I have just told is the core legend, the foundation upon which many variations have been built over more than 2,000 years across numerous cultures. But like the moon itself, which shows different faces as it waxes and wanes, the legend of the moon rabbit takes on different forms depending on who tells it, when it is told, and which cultural traditions shape its telling. Let us explore these variations, for each one reveals something unique about the culture that created it, and together they form a rich tapestry of meaning that is far greater than any single version could convey. The Chinese tradition, Jade Rabbit and Chang'e. In Chinese folklore, the moon rabbit is most commonly called Yutu, literally moon rabbit, or Yutu the jade rabbit, and sometimes the gold rabbit or golden hare. The legend is deeply intertwined with another famous Chinese myth, the story of Chang'e, the moon goddess. Chang'e was once a mortal woman, wife to the great archer Hou-yi, who performed a tremendous service for humanity by shooting down 9 of the 10 suns that were scorching the earth, the 10 suns being, in some versions, the transformed sons of the Emperor of Heaven, which is why Hou-yi was later punished for his act, despite its necessity. As a reward for saving the world, the gods gave Hou-yi an elixir of immortality, enough for one person to become a god or for 2 people to gain eternal life without divinity. Hou-yi loved his wife dearly and wanted to share the elixir with her so they could live forever together. But before they could drink it together, one of several things happened depending on which version of the story you hear. Either Chang'e, in a moment of weakness or excitement, drank the entire elixir herself, or she drank it to prevent Hou-yi's jealous apprentice from stealing it, or she consumed it out of anger at her husband for some slight. Regardless of the reason, the result was the same. Chang'e floated up to the moon, ascending to the lunar palace, separated from her husband forever by the vast gulf between earth and heaven. In this Chinese tradition, the jade rabbit is Chang'e's companion and servant, eternally pounding herbs with mortar and pestle to create the elixir of immortality, the very same elixir that brought Chang'e to the moon in the first place. Some versions say the rabbit is making more of the potion, constantly replenishing it for the gods. Others say the rabbit is pounding herbs to make medicine for mortals, as an act of continuing charity. Still others say the rabbit is making mooncakes, the special pastries eaten during the Mid-Autumn Festival. The relationship between Chang'e and the jade rabbit is one of the most poignant aspects of the Chinese version. Chang'e is lonely, separated from the husband she loved, or from the mortal world she knew depending on the version, living in immortal splendor but paying the price of isolation. The jade rabbit is her companion, her friend, perhaps the only being she can truly talk to in her celestial exile. Together they watch the earth spinning below, watching the cycles of human joy and sorrow, watching the seasons change and the years pass, immortal but not necessarily happy, blessed but also cursed. During the Mid-Autumn Festival, celebrated on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunar calendar, when the moon is fullest and brightest, families gather to eat mooncakes, light lanterns and tell the story of Chang'e and the jade rabbit. Children carry lanterns shaped like rabbits or the moon, and the holiday becomes a celebration of family unity, of the harvest, and of the mysterious beauty of the moon. The famous Tang Dynasty poet Li Bai, one of the greatest poets in Chinese history, wrote about the moon rabbit. The rabbit in the moon pounds the medicine in vain. This line from his poem The Old Dust carries a note of melancholy. The rabbit works forever at its task, but the work is never finished, the medicine never complete. There is something both beautiful and sad in this image of eternal, futile labor. Li Bai himself supposedly died trying to embrace the reflection of the moon in a river while drunk on wine. A fitting end, perhaps, for a poet who wrote so often and so beautifully about the moon. Whether the story of his death is true or legendary, it has entered Chinese culture as a symbol of the moon's seductive beauty, its power to draw mortals toward something they can never quite reach. In Japan, the moon rabbit is called Tsuki no Usagi, and the legend takes on a distinctly Japanese flavor. The core story of the rabbit's sacrifice remains the same. The four animals practicing charity, the disguised deity, the leap into the fire, but in the Japanese version there are often only three animals, monkey, fox and rabbit, with otter and jackal absent. And the divine figure is specifically called the Old Man of the Moon or the Man in the Moon. More significantly, what the rabbit does on the moon changes in the Japanese telling. Instead of pounding herbs to make the elixir of immortality, the Japanese moon rabbit pounds mochi, glutinous rice cakes that are a traditional food in Japan, eaten especially during festivals and celebrations. Mochi making is a communal activity that requires strength and rhythm. Steamed glutinous rice is placed in a large mortar and pounded with heavy wooden mallets, gradually becoming a smooth, stretchy, delicious paste that can be shaped into cakes. The image of the moon rabbit pounding mochi has become deeply embedded in Japanese culture. During Tsukimi, the Japanese moon viewing festival held in autumn when the moon is most beautiful, families offer mochi to the moon, along with pampas grass and other autumn decorations. The holiday is quieter and more contemplative than some other festivals, focused on appreciating the beauty of the natural world, on the aesthetic principle of aware, a gentle sadness at the transience of all things, mixed with appreciation for their fleeting beauty. The Japanese version emphasizes the peaceful, meditative aspect of the moon rabbit's eternal task. There is something calming about the image of the rabbit pounding away, night after night, century after century, creating food rather than medicine, engaging in simple, honest work. The rhythm of the pounding, thump, 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 becomes like a heartbeat, a meditation, a connection between earth and sky. Japanese children are taught to look for the moon rabbit on the night of the full moon, and many can easily pick out the rabbit's shape in the lunar markings. The story becomes part of how they understand the moon, part of the web of meaning that connects the night sky to daily life, the cosmic to the domestic. The Korean tradition, rice cakes and the kasha tree. In Korea, the moon rabbit is called Daltokki, and as in the Japanese version, it pounds rice cakes, specifically tteok, Korean glutinous rice cakes that are similar to Japanese mochi but with their own distinct character and preparation method. The Korean version of the origin story follows the same basic pattern. 3 animals, usually rabbit, fox and monkey, practice charity. The disguised god tests them. Rabbit offers herself, and is rewarded with a place on the moon. But Korean traditions add an additional element. The rabbit is often depicted standing beneath a cassia tree or cinnamon tree, which also grows on the moon. This cassia tree is significant in Korean folklore. It represents longevity and immortality, and its presence on the moon adds another layer of symbolism to the scene. The rabbit beneath the tree pounding rice cakes creates a complete picture. Nature, sustenance, eternal labor, all harmonized in a celestial realm. The Korean Mid-Autumn Festival, called Chuseok, is one of the most important holidays in Korea, a time when families travel from across the country to gather together, visit ancestral graves and celebrate the harvest. Special foods are prepared, including songpyeon, half-moon-shaped rice cakes, and the story of the moon rabbit is retold to children, emphasizing themes of selflessness, family unity and gratitude. A beloved Korean children's song, Half Moon, written in 1924 by Yoon Guk-young, references the moon rabbit. Blue sky and Milky Way. White boat and cinnamon tree and rabbit. Won't you go and play without an oar or a sail? This simple song, taught to generations of Korean children, creates a dreamlike image of the moon as a fantastical place where impossible things are possible, where a boat floats without an oar, where a rabbit makes rice cakes beneath a tree that should not grow in the sky. The Vietnamese tradition, gifts for children. In Vietnamese folklore, the moon rabbit is called Tho Ngoc, Jade rabbit, or Tho Trang, moon rabbit, and as in Chinese tradition it is often depicted as a companion to the moon goddess, called Hang Na in Vietnamese, a variant of Chang'e. But Vietnamese tradition adds another figure, Chu Quoy, a man who lives on the moon sitting beneath a banyan tree. The Vietnamese version is particularly appealing to children because, during the Tet Trung Thursday festival, the Vietnamese Mid-Autumn Festival, it is said that the moon rabbit, moon lady and Chu Quoy all descend to earth to distribute gifts to children, lanterns, mooncakes and toys. This makes the moon rabbit not just a distant figure in the sky but an active participant in earthly celebrations, a bringer of joy. Vietnamese children make colorful lanterns in various shapes, stars, fish, butterflies and of course rabbits, and parade through the streets at night during the festival, creating rivers of light that mirror the stars above. The festival becomes a magical time when the boundary between heaven and earth seems permeable, when celestial beings visit the mortal realm, when wonder and joy are accessible to even the smallest child. While we have been exploring the various cultural versions of the moon rabbit legend, it's important to understand that many scholars believe all these stories trace back to a common source. The Buddhist Jataka tales, specifically Tale 316, known as the Hare Jataka, or Sasa Jataka. The Jataka tales are a collection of stories about the previous lives of the Buddha before he achieved enlightenment. In these stories, the Buddha is reborn in many forms, as human princes and poor laborers, as deer and monkeys and fish and birds. And in each life he exhibits the virtues of compassion, wisdom and selflessness that would eventually lead to his enlightenment. In the Hare Jataka, the Buddha was reborn as a hare, technically a hare, not a rabbit, though the distinction is often blurred in translation. The story follows the same pattern we've already explored. 4 animals practicing charity, hare, monkey, otter and jackal in this version, the disguised deity, Sakra, the Buddhist king of gods, the test and the hare's ultimate sacrifice. But the Buddhist version emphasizes certain teachings that are central to Buddhism. The hare, before leaping into the fire, shakes the insects from his coat, an act that shows his compassion extends even to the smallest creatures, that he will not take other lives even in the act of giving his own. This detail appears in many versions of the story and is a specifically Buddhist touch, reflecting the religion's emphasis on non-violence and compassion for all living beings. Moreover, in Buddhist interpretation, the hare is considered a bodhisattva, a being who is on the path to enlightenment, who has achieved great wisdom and compassion but who chooses to remain in the cycle of rebirth to help other beings achieve liberation. The hare's willingness to sacrifice himself is seen as the perfection of the virtue of dana, generosity or charity, one of the 10 pramithas or perfections that a bodhisattva must master. The fact that Sakura draws the hare's image on the moon, so that all beings for all time will see it and remember, is significant in Buddhist teaching. It suggests that acts of great virtue have cosmic significance, that they create merit that ripples outward affecting countless beings, that selfless compassion is not just personally meaningful but universally transformative. When Buddhism spread from India across Asia along trade routes and through the work of missionaries, it carried this story with it. As the religion adapted to local cultures, incorporating and being incorporated by local beliefs and traditions, the hare Jataka merged with existing folklore, took on new details and variations, but kept its essential core, the teaching that true compassion requires the willingness to give everything, even life itself, for the welfare of others. Part 3. The Moon Rabbit in Daily Life. The legend of the moon rabbit is not just an ancient story told at festivals. It has permeated the daily lives and cultures of East Asian peoples in countless ways, becoming part of the very fabric of how people understand and interact with the world. For more than 2,000 years, the moon rabbit has been a favorite subject of artists across Asia. Chinese painters from the Tang dynasty onward have depicted the jade rabbit in hanging scrolls and silk paintings, often alongside Chang'e or alone in lunar landscapes. Japanese ukiyo-e printmakers created beautiful woodblock prints showing the moon rabbit making mochi, sometimes in whimsical scenes where the rabbit is dressed in human clothes or engaged in unexpected activities. Poets have written countless verses about the moon rabbit. In addition to Li Bai's melancholic line about the rabbit pounding medicine in vain, many other classical poets have used the moon rabbit as a symbol, sometimes of loneliness and exile, especially when linked to Chang'e, sometimes of faithful service and eternal devotion, sometimes of the connection between earth and heaven, mortal and immortal. The image appears on ceramics and textiles, in metalwork and jewelry, on fans and lanterns. During certain periods of Chinese history, the jade rabbit appeared on imperial robes and official seals, a symbol of longevity and virtue. Korean pottery often features rabbit motifs, especially pieces created for use during Chuseok celebrations. The moon rabbit has made a surprisingly successful transition into modern popular culture, appearing in anime, manga, video games, and films. Perhaps the most famous modern incarnation is Usagi Tsukino, the protagonist of the manga and anime series, Sailor Moon. Her name is a pun. Usagi means rabbit in Japanese and Tsukino can be read as of the moon. So her name is literally Rabbit of the Moon, a direct reference to the legend. Throughout the series, lunar imagery and rabbit symbolism appear repeatedly, connecting this modern magical girl story to ancient folklore. Video games frequently feature moon rabbit characters or references. The Pokemon Lopunny is said to be inspired by the moon rabbit. Various Japanese role-playing games include moon rabbit characters, often as healers or support characters, reflecting the rabbit's association with medicine and helping others. In 2013, China's lunar exploration program named its rover Yutu, Jade Rabbit, sending it to the moon, a beautiful example of ancient mythology inspiring modern space exploration. The rover experienced technical difficulties but managed to operate longer than originally expected, becoming something of a social media sensation in China, with people anthropomorphizing it and rooting for the plucky little rover that shared the moon rabbit's name. A second rover, Yutu 2, was deployed on the far side of the moon in 2019, continuing the tradition. The moon rabbit is central to autumn harvest festivals across East Asia, though each culture celebrates in its own way. In China, the Mid-Autumn Festival is marked by the giving and sharing of mooncakes, round pastries filled with sweet bean paste, lotus seed paste, or other fillings, sometimes with a salted egg yolk in the center representing the moon. Modern moon cakes sometimes feature decorations of the jade rabbit on their surface. Lanterns are lit, and families gather to view the moon together, tell stories, and celebrate the harvest. In Japan, Tsukimi, moon viewing, is a more contemplative affair. People create moon viewing platforms or simply sit in places with a good view of the moon, offering rice dumplings, dango, arranged in a pyramid, pampas grass, and other seasonal items. The aesthetic is one of quiet appreciation, of aware, that particular Japanese sensibility that finds beauty in transience and incompleteness. In Korea, Chuseok is arguably the most important holiday of the year, a 3-day celebration when people return to their ancestral homes, perform memorial services for deceased ancestors, visit family graves, and feast together. Songpai and rice cakes are prepared, traditional folk games are played, and stories are told. The moon rabbit features prominently in decorations and children's activities. In Vietnam, Tet Trung Thursday is especially oriented toward children who receive gifts, carry lanterns, and enjoy special treats. The festival celebrates childhood and family with the moon rabbit, moon lady, and Chu Koi as friendly celestial visitors bringing joy. The moon rabbit has even entered common speech in various Asian languages. In Chinese, saying someone is like the jade rabbit can suggest they are faithful and hardworking, or alternatively that they are engaged in futile, never-ending labor. The phrase pounding the elixir has become idiomatic, meaning to work diligently at an important but endless task. In Japanese, references to Suki no Usagi appear in poetry and literature as a kind of shorthand for evoking loneliness, devotion, or the connection between human and natural worlds. The image is so culturally embedded that Japanese audiences immediately understand its connotations without need for explanation. Beyond its cultural significance and its aesthetic appeal, the legend of the moon rabbit carries deep philosophical and moral teachings that have resonated across centuries and cultures. Let us reflect on what this ancient story has to teach us, on why it has endured and continues to be told. At its heart, the moon rabbit story is about selflessness, the willingness to give without expectation of reward, to put others' needs before one's own desires, to sacrifice even when the sacrifice is enormous and the benefit to oneself is non-existent. In our modern world, we are often encouraged to be self-interested, to prioritize our own goals and happiness, to look out for number one. There is nothing inherently wrong with self-care and personal ambition, but the moon rabbit reminds us that there is something noble, something deeply human, or rather deeply conscious and compassionate, about being willing to give for others. Rabbit had nothing material to offer. She couldn't climb trees for fruit, couldn't catch fish, couldn't scavenge for found treasures. By worldly standards, she was poor, lacking in skills, having little value to contribute. Yet she found a way to give the most valuable thing any being possesses: her own life. This challenges us to examine our own excuses for not helping others. How often do we say, "I don't have enough money to give to charity," or "I don't have time to volunteer," or "I'm not skilled enough to make a difference"? The moon rabbit teaches that if we truly want to help, we will find a way, and that the size of the gift matters less than the heart that gives it. But the story also teaches something more subtle, that true selflessness doesn't seek recognition or reward. Rabbit didn't leap into the fire thinking, "This will make me famous," or "I'll be rewarded for this." She did it simply because it was the right thing to do, the only way she could fulfill her promise of charity. The reward came afterward, unexpected and unlooked for, granted by a divine being who recognized virtue when he saw it. In our social media age, where every act of charity can be photographed and shared, where virtue signaling has become a phrase that captures our tendency to publicize our good deeds, the moon rabbit reminds us that the purest charity is the kind nobody sees, the selfless act performed simply because it needs doing, not because it will earn likes or praise or social capital. Another profound teaching of the moon rabbit legend is that virtue can be found in the most unexpected places, that those who seem least impressive by worldly standards may possess the greatest spiritual qualities. Monkey was clever and agile. Otter was skilled and swift. Jackal was cunning and resourceful. By any objective measure, they were more capable than rabbit, more likely to succeed in life, better equipped to survive and thrive. And yet it was rabbit, the small and simple one, who demonstrated the highest virtue. This theme appears throughout spiritual literature across cultures. The meek shall inherit the earth, the last shall be first, the stone the builders rejected becomes the cornerstone. It's a teaching that challenges our tendency to value people based on their apparent abilities, their social status, their material success. How many people do we overlook in our daily lives because they seem unremarkable? How many individuals do we underestimate because they don't have impressive credentials or flashy skills? The moon rabbit teaches us to look deeper, to recognize that true worth isn't measured by worldly standards, that kindness and compassion and moral courage can exist in the humblest beings. This is perhaps especially important for children to learn, and it's no accident that the moon rabbit story is often told to children. Young people are frequently comparing themselves to others, measuring their worth by grades or athletic ability or popularity. The moon rabbit reminds them that what truly matters is not how skilled you are but what kind of person you are, not what you can do but what you choose to do with what you have. One detail that appears in many versions of the moon rabbit story is particularly meaningful. When the disguised god builds the fire and Rabbit prepares to leap into it, she shakes herself first to send away the fleas and insects living in her fur. She will not take other lives with her, even though those lives are small and insignificant by most measures. This detail reveals an important teaching about intention and mindfulness. Rabbit's act of self-sacrifice is virtuous, but it would be less so if it inadvertently caused harm to others. True compassion is aware, attentive, considers all the implications of our actions. In our own lives, we sometimes harm others while trying to help, or create negative consequences we didn't intend while pursuing positive goals. The moon rabbit's mindfulness, her awareness of the small lives that would be affected by her action, her care to protect them even in her moment of supreme sacrifice, teaches us to think about the full impact of our choices. Moreover, the story teaches that even actions that might seem small or insignificant, shaking away a few fleas, matter. Compassion extends to all beings, not just the ones we consider important. This is a particularly Buddhist teaching, reflecting the religion's emphasis on ahimsa, nonviolence, and metta, loving kindness, toward all conscious beings. The image of the moon rabbit pounding away with mortar and pestle, working forever at a task that can never be completed, offers a different kind of teaching. One about the nature of work, duty, and finding meaning in ongoing effort rather than finished achievement. In modern Western culture, we tend to value completion. We set goals, work toward them, achieve them, and move on to the next thing. We create checklists and cross items off. We measure progress by how much we've accomplished, how many projects we've finished, how far we've advanced toward our objectives. But the moon rabbit's work is never done. The elixir of immortality must be continually remade. The rice cakes are pounded and given away, and then more must be made. There is no end point, no moment when the rabbit can say, "I'm finished," and rest on its accomplishments. Yet the rabbit doesn't seem unhappy. In art and literature, the moon rabbit is typically depicted as content, peacefully engaged in its work, finding satisfaction in the doing rather than in the completion. This offers a different model of meaningful life, one based on process rather than product, on faithful service rather than achievement, on showing up and doing the work day after day even when it will never be finished. Many people today struggle with feelings of inadequacy because they haven't made it yet, haven't achieved all their goals, haven't reached some imagined state of completion where they can finally relax and feel satisfied. The moon rabbit suggests a different way. Find work that matters, engage in it fully, and let the satisfaction come from the engagement itself rather than from finishing. Parents raising children, teachers educating students, healthcare workers caring for patients, artists creating art, these are all forms of work that are never truly done. There will always be another child to raise, another student to teach, another patient to care for, another creation to bring into being. The moon rabbit's eternal task is a metaphor for this kind of meaningful, ongoing work that gives life purpose precisely because it continues, not in spite of its continuation. Finally, the moon rabbit teaches about the connections between different realms of existence, between mortal and immortal, earth and sky, human and divine. The rabbit began as a simple forest creature, concerned with simple things like finding food and avoiding predators. Through an act of extraordinary virtue, she transcended her mortal nature and was elevated to the celestial realm. But even in heaven she continues to serve, continues to work, continues to be connected to the world below. This suggests that the boundary between earth and heaven is not absolute, that actions on earth have significance in the cosmic order, that mortals can touch the divine and that the divine remains involved in mortal affairs. The moon rabbit, visible in the sky every month when the moon is full, is a constant reminder of this connection. In Asian traditions, there is often less of a sharp divide between the supernatural and the natural than exists in Western thought. Gods and spirits are immanent as well as transcendent. They exist in the world, not just beyond it. The moon rabbit embodies this understanding. She lives on the moon, yes, but she is visible from Earth, and her story is earthly even as her current existence is heavenly. For those of us living in an increasingly secular age, when many people feel disconnected from any sense of the sacred or the transcendent, the moon rabbit offers a way back to wonder. Simply by looking up at the moon and seeing the rabbit's shape, we can connect with something larger than ourselves, can remember that the universe is full of mystery and meaning, can feel ourselves part of a story that spans millennia. As we move toward the end of our journey through this ancient legend, let us spend some time in quiet contemplation, allowing the story to settle into our hearts, considering what it means for our own lives, for how we understand ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Think about the moon itself for a moment. Unlike the sun, which is bright and powerful and sometimes harsh, the moon is gentle. Its light doesn't burn or blind, it soothes and illuminates softly. You can look directly at the moon without harm, can walk under moonlight and feel peaceful rather than exposed. The moon changes constantly, waxing and waning, appearing and disappearing, showing us different faces throughout its monthly cycle. Yet it is always itself, always following its ordained path through the sky. In many ways, the moon is the perfect home for the rabbit of our story. Like the moon, rabbit was gentle rather than powerful, humble rather than impressive, content to shine softly rather than blaze brilliantly. And like the moon, rabbit's quiet presence has illuminated the darkness for countless generations, has given light to those who might otherwise have lost their way. When you look up at the full moon tonight or next month or any time in your life when you happen to see the moon bright in the sky, take a moment to look for the rabbit. Some people see it immediately, others have to train their eyes to pick out the shape. But once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. The dark markings that seemed random will resolve into a clear picture. A rabbit standing upright, holding a pestle, engaged in eternal work. And when you see it, remember the story. Remember 4 animals who decided to practice charity. Remember 3 who gave what they could and 1 who gave everything. Remember a disguised God who tested virtue and found it in the smallest, humblest creature. Remember a leap into fire that didn't burn, a transformation from mortal to immortal, a reward for selflessness that ensures the story will be told forever. But more than remembering the story, consider what it asks of you. You are not a rabbit, and hopefully you will never be asked to sacrifice your life for another. But you are asked, every day in small ways, to choose between selfishness and generosity, between holding back and giving freely, between protecting your own interests and caring for others' needs. The moon rabbit doesn't teach that we should all become martyrs, throwing ourselves away at every opportunity. Rather, it teaches that when the moment comes, that moment when we are called to give more than is comfortable, to sacrifice more than is convenient, to put someone else's welfare genuinely before our own, we should be ready to respond with generosity rather than self-protection, with compassion rather than calculation. Maybe that moment will be dramatic, saving someone from danger, donating a kidney to a stranger, giving up a career opportunity so a colleague can advance. Or maybe it will be quiet and undramatic, spending time with a lonely neighbor when you'd rather watch TV, giving money to charity when your budget is tight, offering kindness to someone who hasn't earned it and may not appreciate it. The moon rabbit teaches that we all have something to give, even when we feel we have nothing. We can give time, attention, kindness, patience, forgiveness, presence. We can give the gift of truly listening, of bearing witness to another's pain, of seeing and acknowledging someone who feels invisible. We can give up our need to be right, our attachment to having the last word, our insistence on protecting our ego at all costs. These gifts cost us something. That's what makes them gifts rather than just pleasant exchanges. But they're not impossible. They don't require special abilities or tremendous resources. They just require a willingness to give, to sacrifice something we value, comfort, time, pride, resources, for someone else's benefit. And here's the remarkable thing. When we give this way, something happens that the moon rabbit story captures beautifully. The fire that should have burned didn't burn. The sacrifice that should have meant death led instead to immortality. The act that seemed like an ending was actually a beginning. This isn't to say that every sacrifice leads to obvious reward. We shouldn't give with the expectation of getting something back, or we're not really practicing selfless charity. But there is a strange alchemy that happens when we genuinely give. We don't become less, we become more. We don't lose ourselves, we find ourselves. The boundaries between ourselves and others become more permeable, and we discover that in serving others, we serve our own deepest nature. The Buddhist tradition that gave birth to this legend understands something profound, that the separate self we spend so much energy protecting and promoting is, in an important sense, an illusion. We are not islands, separate and isolated. We are interconnected with all beings, part of a web of relationships that extends throughout the universe. When we act with compassion, we are simply recognizing this truth and aligning our actions with reality. The moon rabbit, in leaping into the fire for a stranger, transcended the narrow boundaries of self-interest and connected with something universal. And in doing so, she didn't cease to exist. She achieved a kind of existence that was larger, more meaningful, more real than her previous life as a simple forest animal. We too can transcend the narrow boundaries of self-interest. We too can connect with something universal. We too can find a kind of existence that is larger and more meaningful than what we achieve through protecting and promoting our separate selves. As you drift toward sleep tonight, consider this: what would it mean to live as the moon rabbit lived? Not to seek opportunities for dramatic self-sacrifice, but to approach each day with a genuine willingness to give, to help, to serve? To see others' needs as real and important as our own? To find satisfaction in faithful work rather than in accumulating achievements? To be humble about our abilities while still doing our best? To be mindful of the impact of our actions, attending even to the small lives and small consequences we might otherwise overlook? These are not easy questions. The moon rabbit's path is not an easy path, but it is a path that leads to something beautiful, to a life that matters, to actions that echo through time, to a peace that comes from living in alignment with our deepest values rather than in conflict with them. Sleep now, and let these thoughts settle into your unconscious mind, where they may bear fruit in unexpected ways. Dream of moonlight and rabbits, of ancient forests and celestial palaces, of small acts of kindness that ripple outward to touch countless lives, of the connection between earth and heaven that exists in every moment if we have eyes to see it. And so our story draws to a close, though the legend itself continues, passed from generation to generation, told and retold in 1,000 variations, always carrying its essential truth: that compassion matters, that selflessness is virtue, that the smallest beings can possess the greatest hearts. Tonight, somewhere in China, a family is gathered on a balcony eating mooncakes and looking up at the full moon, and a grandmother is telling her grandchildren about the jade rabbit who lives there, pounding medicine for the lonely moon goddess. Tonight, somewhere in Japan, a group of friends has gathered for Tsukimi, arranging dango on a platform and appreciating the austere beauty of the autumn moon, talking softly about the transience of all things and the peace that comes from accepting that transience. Tonight, somewhere in Korea, a family has returned to their ancestral village for Chuseok, and children are eating songpyeon while their parents tell them the story of Daltokki, the rabbit who sacrificed itself to feed a beggar and was rewarded with immortality. Tonight, somewhere in Vietnam, children are carrying lanterns through the streets, their faces bright with joy, believing that the moon rabbit and the moon lady might descend to earth and bring them gifts. And tonight, wherever you are, you can look up at the moon. If it's visible, if the weather is clear, if you take a moment to step outside or look through a window, and you can see it too. The rabbit is there, standing eternal, pounding away at its mortar, faithful to its task, a reminder of virtue rewarded, of stories that endure, of the connections between earth and sky, past and present, mortal and divine. The moon has witnessed everything humanity has ever done. It has watched empires rise and fall, has seen countless births and deaths, has illuminated both the worst and best of human nature. And through all of it, the moon rabbit has been there, unchanging, constant, a gentle presence in the night sky, a story that has brought comfort and inspiration to billions of people across thousands of years. When we look at the moon and see the rabbit, we become part of this vast continuity. We join ourselves to all those who came before us and all those who will come after, all of us gazing at the same moon, seeing the same rabbit, hearing the same story, learning the same lessons about compassion and sacrifice and the meaning of a life well lived. There is something profoundly comforting about this. In a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless, where our individual lives can seem insignificant against the vastness of space and time, the moon rabbit reminds us that meaning exists, that our actions matter, that kindness and compassion are not naive or weak but powerful and transformative. The rabbit began as a small, simple creature with nothing special to offer. Through an act of pure compassion, she became immortal, eternal, part of the cosmos itself, her image forever visible in the night sky. If even a simple rabbit can touch the infinite through compassion, what might we achieve if we truly opened our hearts to others? This is not about becoming famous or being remembered. Most of us will be forgotten within a few generations, our names lost, our achievements unrecorded, our individual stories vanishing like morning mist. But the quality of compassion we bring to our lives, the kindness we show to others, the genuine care we take with our actions, these things ripple outward in ways we cannot predict or control, affecting people we will never meet, creating consequences that extend far beyond our limited vision. The moon rabbit is not famous because she wanted to be famous. She is remembered because she acted from pure compassion, and such actions have a quality that transcends individual intention, that enters the realm of myth and meaning, that becomes part of humanity's shared wisdom about what it means to live well. So sleep now, cradled in this ancient wisdom, protected by the gentle light of the moon and the eternal presence of the rabbit who dwells there. Know that you are part of something larger than yourself, that your life has meaning and purpose, that your acts of kindness, however small, however unnoticed by others, matter in the grand scheme of things. Dream of silver light and patient rabbits, of gods who test and reward virtue, of fires that don't burn when the heart is pure, of the eternal work of making elixirs and pounding rice cakes, of connections between earth and heaven that exist in every moment, of the beauty that comes from living with compassion, of the peace that comes from knowing we are part of an ancient story that will continue long after we are gone. And when you wake tomorrow, perhaps you will remember something of this tale. Perhaps you will look for opportunities to practice the moon rabbit's virtue in your own small ways. Perhaps you will be a little kinder, a little more generous, a little more willing to give without expecting return. And if enough of us do this, if enough of us remember the moon rabbit's lesson and try, however imperfectly, to live with greater compassion, then perhaps we create a world a little more like the one the moon rabbit's story envisions. A world where virtue is recognized and rewarded, where the smallest acts of kindness matter, where compassion connects us to something eternal and infinite, where the gentle light of the moon illuminates our path forward. Good night, dear friend. May the moon rabbit watch over you as you sleep. May your dreams be peaceful and meaningful. May you wake refreshed and ready to bring compassion into another day. And may you always remember, you are never too small, never too humble, never too ordinary to make a difference. Like the rabbit in our story, you have gifts to give, even if they don't seem impressive by worldly standards. All that matters is that you give them freely from a heart full of compassion, without expectation of reward. The moon is there, constant and eternal, and the rabbit is there, pounding away at its mortar, faithful to its task through all the long centuries. And you are here, part of this beautiful, interconnected world, capable of compassion, capable of sacrifice, capable of touching the infinite through simple acts of kindness. Sleep well. Dream beautifully. And remember the moon rabbit, who teaches us that love and compassion can transform even the smallest life into something cosmic and eternal. Good night.